But if you will turn to Vayikra, Leviticus, we will get more involved with this. If we could start in verse 27.
Is that chapter 23?
Yes. Did I fail to mention that? I apologize. Now, in verse 27 of chapter 23, on the 10th of this 7th month, it is the Day of Atonement, a holy occasion. You shall afflict yourselves and offer a fire offering to Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. Now, we're going to go through this, unless you want to complete the reading here and then go back over it again. What's your preference?
Now let's do this now, please. Have your lesson now.
Oh, okay. Now, in verse 27, it speaks of the Day of Atonement. Atonement there, in the framework of Day of Atonement, the word there is Kippur or Kippurim, okay? Now, we need to make this distinction, okay? Kippurim means literally atonement for transgression. That's specifically what is designated there, okay? Is atonement for transgression. Transgression, genuinely speaking, refers to a transgression of his teaching, instruction, direction, his Torah. Okay? Now, remember, this day is a day for all of our people as a people. It's not a day where any single individual would be singled out. And I double that purposely, okay, because that's not for today. Okay, so if anybody feels like anything from the lesson singles them out, that's not my intent, not my purpose, not my direction. Now, if your heart is being stirred by the Most High, that's between you and Him. And this is for anybody listening, not just us. Okay. Now, if we go on to verse 28, you may not do any work on this very day, for it is the Day of Atonement, to atone for you before Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, your Elohim. Okay? While it may say even in the Crown in English, you may not do any work, that's actually not strong enough language. We are not to do any work, servile labor, or anything that we would do on any secular day. Okay? Now, it repeats again, for it is a Day of Atonement. Again, that word there is with the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. Kippur is atonement for transgression. Okay? Right next to it, to atone for you. That word, atone for you, atone is kafar. So it's saying the day itself is for Kippur, atonement for transgression. But the one that is actually doing the atonement, the Kohen Hagadol, is doing Kippur. Okay? Now, atonement for discretion, Kippur, has nothing to do with the famous, what's the word in English? A expiation in English, where they tried to talk about the atonement that Yeshua did was a different kind of atonement. Yes, it was. His atonement was Kippur. Yeshua's atonement was not Kippur. Okay.
What does kufar mean?
Well, Kippur, by simple definition, is covering. Okay. Just like simple definition for any of the words used for atonement is covering. They all say covering.
Right.
So a lot of people who don't study enough, they get into a twist when they talk about Yeshua and the atonement he did, that it was a different kind of covering. Okay. The atonement he did was Kippur. Okay. Now, if any of you study using the ancient Hebrew lexicon by Brenner, he does an excellent job in breaking these things down. Okay. Now, but you need to see here in 28 where they use both the words for atonement, Kippur and Kippur, very close to each other. One, the day is set aside as a day of atoning for transgression for us as a people. Okay? So you need to understand when the Kohen Hagadol would go in to the Kodesh Kodeshi, okay, the Holy of Holies, the most set apart of set apartness, okay. When he would go in, he was entering into in a way on this day because the Most High has already set this day apart for Kippur, atonement for transgression. And so the first thing our people are judged by on this day as a people is for their transgression. So the atonement that is actually done for their transgression is actually done by the Most High, day of Kippur, because no place does it say that even the Kohen Hagadol can do Kippur. He can do Kippur. So when he does Kippur for us as a people, then the Most High does Kippur himself, because he set the day aside for that. So the word he sent out by command has to return fulfilled. Even after Yeshua has come. Tell me, what just happened, Ananiah? Tell me what just happened.
You got to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
All good things. Just a little understanding goes a long way.
I've been saying that ever since I've been a student. And I am still today yet a student. So please understand that the way he set this day up and all of it in perpetuality, he is still the one who does the Kippur. His command still stands. Gotta like this part, huh, Hananiah?
Oh, very much so.
This becomes extremely important whenever you consider that Yeshua said, I've come for the lost sheep of Yisrael. And my sheep know my voice. They know me. They hear my voice. Now,
Shabbat Shalom, Patrick. Hag Sameach Yom Kippur. Patrick's with us now.
yeah, what he said. That way we don't all have to say it again. Now, if we go a little bit farther to verse 29, okay, for any person who is not afflicted this very day shall be cut off from his people. Now, among most of the rabbis, even they agree that this would be a spiritual cutoff. Okay. Now, this word here, afflicted in English, okay, we have 5 to 8 words that can be used for afflicted here that are used in different verses, different ways, in different places. All of them in their context and syntax are correct. But we got to look at this one, because this is probably one of the most misunderstood small passages in this area for this study. Okay. It says in the Crown, and somebody else can add their version if you like. Okay. For any person who is not afflicted this very day, this day, specifically this day that is set apart for him to atone for our transgressions after the Kohen Hagadol covers our transgressions and everything else. Now understand this. Kafar covers everything. Okay? Kafar covers transgression. It covers transgression is the definition of sin. Okay? So it covers every sin. It covers all of it beyond what would be of our people as a whole, as a group. Now, I have to present this to you so you understand. There's 2 sides to this, and every person has both of these sides. Okay? And I have to explain it the way it was explained to me many years ago. If I turn to my right, that's my public face. That's my face that shows that part of me that is a part of us as a people. That's the part of me that every other person within our people can see or reach out to easily. We all have that part of us that make us a part of us, that make us a part of Israel. Okay? And then we have that other side I use as an example, turn to my left side. That's me for only me. That's my personal side. That's my inner side. That's the part I really don't want anybody else to see unless I trust him as much as I trust the Most High. Got it? We all have these 2 sides. Kippur is for that public side. Kafar is for that other side. And whenever you observe Yom Kippur, the way that he designates it, you get to experience both today. Because that's the way he set it up. Okay? Yom Kippur, atonement for transgression. That's the Most High's bailiwick. Because he put the Kodesh here for that. And all of us as sons of Aharon, he makes us Kodesh, because we have to atone for ourselves before we atone for others. The Kohen HaGadol had to atone for himself, atone for all the rest of the Kohanim, and all of Israel. So we have both Kippur and we have Kippur going on an ongoing basis today. So when the Kohen HaGadol enters in, and there is a direct reference to that in Hebrews chapter 4, the first 10, 15 verses, is very important. Okay. When he enters in and he's got the bells going, he's got the string on him, on his foot, he enters in. One of the major points of the veil is that he enters in. He's already Kodesh, so he can atone for himself. He's Kodesh, so he can atone for the other Kohanim. He is Kodesh, so that he can atone for all of Israel. And so he's got enough Kodesh, he enters in, and that area is fully Kadosh. Because it's called Kadosh Kedushi. Okay? Holy of Holies. Set apart or set apart. It has to be Kadosh. And when it's fully Kadosh, guess whose presence is there? With everything fully Kadosh. So when he enters in there, and he's doing Kippur for all of Israel in the order it was given. Once that Kippur is accomplished and the Most High accepts it, the Kippur happens from the place of Kadosh, and then it extends out. Now I have a question. If anybody could answer, I would be really happy. Why was that veil torn when Yeshua was on the execution stake? Why did that happen? What was the purpose? Does it say anything in Scripture?
Not that I'm familiar with.
Has anybody found a scripture concerning that anywhere? Come on, Hananiah.
We'll dig something up.
I like that. Good. I like it. That is not sarcasm. It's genuine. Now, the popular teaching that cycles and recycles all the time is it wasn't just the Kohen HaGadol that could enter in, but everybody could enter in. But I haven't found it in Scripture yet. Okay? And the problem with that is the Kadosh. Considering that we are taught and the continuous times that the Kohen HaGadol has done this, that if it's fully Kadosh in there, how could you, if you're not fully Kadosh, enter in? When he commanded, his command in Torah, that only the Kohen HaGadol would enter in. How could anybody helter-skelter just decide to enter in whenever they feel good with a little kadosh, or rather a little kodesh, from what part of the fruit of the Spirit that they may have in a given day? Would that be enough to enter in to that fully kadosh area?
No.
What would happen if you were not fully kadosh entering into a fully kadosh area?
Night night,
Now it says-
Irene.
Huh?
See you on the other side.
Uh-huh. Now, consider, since Yeshua ascended, based on this teaching that Yeshua is the Mashiach, the anointed one, the anointed salvation, considering that to be true, that once he ascended and sat at the right hand of the Father and regained his honor, based on this prayer in John 17, if that's true, how many Kohen Haggadahs do we have now? How many Kohen Haggadahs do we have?
A lot.
Okay, explain that so nobody's confused, since this is being recorded.
Potentially the eldest male of every house, the father of that household.
That would be priest of the firstborn. That doesn't qualify for the high priest, Kohen Haggadah.
Okay, then
That'd be like saying all the sons of Aharon are qualified to be the Kohen Haggadah.
all right. So only one.
You're wrong. Let's make it right.
All right.
We have two. Ever since he gave us the blueprint for the Mishkan, and ever since we've had a Kohen Haggadah to enter in for us on the earth, because he said that the blueprint for the Mishkan was only a shadow of what was already in heaven. So we had to have had one where already, since there was already a Mishkan in heaven.
One here and one there.
Yes.
Sure. For your previous question, the book of Hebrews in chapter 6, verse 20. I'm not a fan of the Greek, but there's a phrase that says forerunner in English, like the model of Toyota truck. And the meaning is, well, one of the meanings is one who comes in advance to a place where the rest are to follow.
Where are you at again?
Hebrews 6, verse 20.
I was hoping somebody was going to go there.
I could remember yesterday.
Yeah.
Hebrews 6, what?
20, where
Oh.
Yeshua previously entered for us and has become a priest forever after the likeness of Melchizedek.
Read it again.
Where Yeshua has previously entered for us and has become a priest forever after the likeness of Melchizedek.
What does that mean?
He
Does
had
that mean, as Christianity teaches, that he took the place of all the Kohanim, the sons of Aharon?
No,
So where is he right now?
serving in the temple. No,
He's
how?
at the right hand of the Father. And
Right.
so one of his offices now is Kohen Haggadah
Right.
for the Mishkan there.
Mm-hmm.
Which means there must be one here on earth.
Uh-huh. And because he commanded it.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
And his word cannot return
Void.
less than fulfilled. Yes. Now, it's interesting, even in Roth's New Testament, the Aramaic, where Yeshua has previously entered for us and has become a priest forever after the likeness of Melchizedek, the righteous king. Now, what does that identify with? The righteous king. What does that identify with? The city of Shalom, Salem.
Okay.
And the king there was called the righteous king, Melchizedek. And he was aware of the Most High. That's an interesting area all by itself. We can't get into today without going off on a tangent. Now, since you brought that up, thank you, Hananiah. It said that Yeshua previously entered for us. Where did he enter? Did he enter into the temple here? Where did he enter?
Up in heaven.
Yes. And that's how he became our advocate there.
Mhm.
Okay. Now it says a priest forever because he was the primary definition of Israel is one who rules as Elohim. Second definition of overcomers. Okay. So he enveloped both of those definitions. Okay. It was said whenever we were in the Exodus, Most High said, Israel is my firstborn son. And if Israel is his firstborn son, who better than a firstborn son? Now, every firstborn son is born what? A Kohen,
Mhm.
after the right of the firstborn. Every firstborn son is a Kohen after the right of the firstborn that carries that family forward and ministers his duties as a Kohen, his priestly duties, for the benefit of that family. Not the immediate family, but the extended family, all the way up to the clan where he meets with other firstborn. One of the duties of the firstborn is to be a judge. Elohim, judge. It is the firstborn priests who are judges at the city's gates. It is the judges of the city's gates that when they can't finalize a verdict on something, they can't find a verdict, they can't settle a dispute, they take it where?
The Most High.
No,
To the Kohen.
to the
Oh,
sons of Aharon. So we've had a relationship ever since we were commanded to be Kohanim, the sons of Aharon. We have had a relationship with the priests of the firstborn because they were first. They were before the sons of Aharon. And yet now there are still both of us here. And some of us are both sides. I'm a firstborn. So, did Yeshua replace the sons of Aharon?
no.
No. So, find me another one, Hananiah. That's a good start. What goes all through 7 and 8?
Eight. That was when we're selling your thing the other day. 8 and 1. 83.
Now, the one that everybody gets into a twist about is verse 22 of Hebrews 7. By all this, is that a superior covenant of which Yeshua is the guaranteed provider? In another area, they say this covenant is old and the other covenant is new. I'm going to make a suggestion for people's understanding. Okay? There is one covenant, and we have many facets and generations of it. As we have new chapters in a book, all of the other covenants are within the one covenant. And even for a covenant to be old, until it's withdrawn or he declares it to be dead, it is still there, even though it may be old. As I've mentioned. Now, let's continue, please. In Vayikra, Leviticus, in chapter 23, we have looked at in verse 28. It is the Day of Atonement, Kippur, atonement for transgression, to atone, kafar, for you before Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh your Elohim. And then in verse 29, for any person who is not afflicted this day shall be cut off from his people. The word afflicted there is one of several. This particular definition of afflicted here is to be depressed or afflicted for another, not oneself. This is a national day of atonement for transgression by the Most High. It is a national day of atonement, Kippur, for our people by the Kohen HaGadol. So the Kohen HaGadol here on the earth does Kippur, while the Kohen HaGadol above does Kippur. And here, this affliction says we're supposed to be depressed or afflicted, not for ourselves, but for another. What will cause you affliction? What will cause you to feel depressed? When the Most High puts somebody on your heart to pray for, to intercede for, when he does that, he's going to let you feel some of what they're going through. He's going to let you feel some of where they're at. He's going to let you feel their pain, their hurt, their hopelessness, their feeling of guilt. Because part of your intercession is so that they can be interceded for, not just by you, but by others. Your intercession is supposed to be like the beginning of a snowball effect. Part of our intercession is asking the Most High to put on other people's hearts to intercede as well. So a person will do what?
Yeah.
They will shew, they will return, and in repentance, they will have a desire to do what? Give an offering, make an offering. Now, today's the day you learn a little bit more about this. If you give money, if you give an animal, if you give food, if you give a bottle of wine, you give a bottle of oil, all of these are offerings. But there's one offering that is not included in the classes of offerings, and it is not included for a reason, because it's the offering is required before you give your offering in these classes. There is an offering that's required before the offering to be given to the Kohen. Anybody have any idea what that offering is? Remember, I said we got two sides. Today is the day for that public side. In order to prepare for this public side, we've got to deal with the personal side so that we can enter in. In the 10 high holy days, we set aside for that from days of old. They may not teach much about it anymore, but today is where it reaches its height and its depth. We intercede for others. We are depressed for another. If another person is not where he needs to be, it says in the prophets, and Hannah found it after I originally taught on it in her presence. It took her like a year or two later. It says, when a righteous person is there, everybody's happy. But when a righteous person falls away or goes away from his righteousness, then they need to be interceded for. And it says there that if at least one person is praying for them, they are not lost. So if any one of us is praying for the others of Israel, guess what?
We're not lost.
Yes. So each one of us individually is to afflict or depress ourselves for another. And if each one of us is interceding and depressing ourselves for one of the others, nobody falls through the cracks. Everybody has somebody else interceding. Everybody has somebody else depressing themselves for another, so that the whole of us receiving Kippur, the whole of us can receive Kippur. That's the purpose of Yom Kippur. That's why the men are commanded to afflict themselves in several ways. Tell me, Hananiah, what just got your attention?
Just listening.
Something just got your attention. What just dinged on your heart?
Work harder.
Let him do that work through you.
Work harder to let him do the work.
Well, then, release. Submit. There's no work that we can do that'll be sufficient for him. The only work that he accepts is the work that he does through us. So, where it says here, for any person who is not afflicted, in other words, for any person who is not choosing to depress himself for another, they're too self-absorbed to care for another. So he said, if you're that self-absorbed and you can't take the time for another, even today, I'll cut you off. That's how serious he is about this, interceding for one another, caring for one another, loving your brother as you love yourself. And then he emphasizes that any person who does any work on this very day, I will destroy that person from among his people. You may do no work. So, if he's asking us to depress ourselves for another, if he's asking us to intercede for another, part of intercession is taking some of the burden that person is feeling to where they feel hopeless, where they don't feel worthy of forgiveness, where they don't feel worthy of atonement. One of the purposes of intercession is to take part of that away from them so that they're not overcome by that feeling of futility. by that feeling that they're not worthy of atonement. They're not worthy of forgiveness. Part of our intercession is to eliminate part of that from them by intercession. Because when we enter in for them, we feel what they feel. We feel their pain. We feel their hurt. And so we can take that before the Most High. And through that intercession, through that affliction, he enters in with them. The Kohen HaGadol, he does the Kippur. And from on high, the Kippur is done. In verse 31, you may do no work. It's an everlasting statute for your generations. Are we still around? Then this still
Sure.
stands. An everlasting statute for your generations in all your residences, any place that is claimed as a residence, a temporary dwelling, a permanent dwelling, a place where you might sleep and recline, a place where you might take meals, a place where you might get before him, a place where you might be with your close ones, your immediate family, extended family, clan, tribe, people. We were always meant to be a tribal people because he grew us as 12 tribes to become a nation of people. It takes all 12 tribes to be that nation of people. So every time we have Yom Kippur, we are interceding for all of those people that have lost their identity, for all of the other tribes. Nobody's left out. Torah still stands. And for all the ones it was given to, all 12 tribes, it still stands. Verse 32. It is a Shabbat of total rest for you, and you shall afflict yourselves. It is a rest of total rest. So when the Most High entered in on the seventh day, and he said, I am resting on the seventh day, it is my Shabbat, my rest. What is his rest? Define for me what his rest is that he entered into his rest. What is his rest? Is also talked about in chapter 4 of Hebrews. What is his rest that he enters in? What is it? Does nobody know yet? After all this time? It is his Kadosh. He is Kadosh and he enters into his own Kadosh. He enters in within himself. And we studied a week or two ago within the prophets, his spirit, which is the source of his Kadosh, has a name. Do you remember what that name is of his spirit that is fully Kadosh and is the source of his Kadosh? What is the name of his spirit? Does anybody remember? We studied that. The name of his spirit, according to the name given in the prophets, is Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. So the name of his spirit is Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, and all of his Kadosh is within his spirit, that which he is, he has to enter in within himself because he is holy kadosh. And he extends that kadosh into the seventh day. So when we enter in on the seventh day, we seek to enter in with him. The way that we do that, the way that he can identify us to allow us to enter in, is that we have what? What must we have to enter in with him?
Kadosh.
Kadosh.
No, we don't get that yet. We get a piece at a time called Kadesh. It says the Spirit is Kodesh and true and redeeming. And all the fruit of the Spirit that comes from the Spirit is in turn Kodesh and true and redeeming. So he gives us fruit of the Spirit. He tells us in John 15, if there is a branch on me that is not producing fruit, then it is removed from me. So it's an imperative, it's a command, part of Torah, that we produce fruit. The only place that we can get fruit from is the fruit for the Spirit bears for us. It bears the fruit of the Spirit. So the Kodesh comes from a place of Kadosh. And then the Most High, for us to enter in with him, it has to recognize the Kadosh. The only way it can recognize it is for the Kodesh given with the fruit of the Spirit that is growing us. Grows us in love, grows us in joy, grows us in peace, shalom, grows us in mercy, grows us in gratitude, grows us in patience, grows us in kindness, grows us in gentleness, and the other fruits of the Spirit. It is an inclusive list given. The attributes of the Most High that were shown are fruits of His Spirit. Okay, it's an inclusive list. So in order for us to enter in with him, we have to have an identifying password. We have to have an identifying part of us. That is his Kodesh. So when we enter in with him on a Shabbat, by virtue of that Kodesh, we enter in with him. And he receives us with open arms, takes us to his bosom. There is a part in Torah that says, if even the Gentile will become Torah observant, then I will bring them to my holy mountain and I will take them to my warm embrace. The only way that can happen is with his Kadosh, with him giving Kodesh. The first time Moshe experienced Kodesh was whenever he stood on the ground and the voice out of the bush said, take off your sandals. The ground that you are on is Kodesh. There was fire in the bush. Fire that did not burn the bush. And from Bereshit to Revelation, from Genesis to Revelation, all fire is what? And who? Because we have repeated times in the prophets and the writings where it says that the Most High is a
Fire.
consuming fire. And that word in Hebrew there is fire. Okay. Now, up to you as soon as we finish the teaching. Hey, John before the Holy Shabbat. Hey, John before the Able to back to evening 75. Can't fault anybody for wanting to be neighborly and courteous. So we give them fruit of the Spirit in return. Now, 32 says, it is a Shabbat of total rest for you, and you shall afflict yourselves. Now, if he's saying on one hand, we cannot do any work, does he consider prayer and intercessory prayer work?
No.
No.
Because while he tells us not to do any work, he tells us to afflict ourselves, to be depressed for another, to intercede, to pray.
And that takes work.
But of a kind he finds acceptable as an offering.
Right.
Just like in other appointed times, we are commanded not to appear before the Most High empty-handed.
So.
So what offering do we bring during Yom Kippur? He commands us to bring an offering of intercession for each other. We afflict ourselves one for another. That's the affliction we go through, bearing the pain of another, bearing the hurt of another, bearing even the guilt of another who has not had atonement. Because the atonement is only for guilt. We still have to ask him for forgiveness of sin. Now, in verse 27, in verse 29, in verse 30, in verse 32. In English, it reads souls. In Hebrew, the word there for souls is nefesh. You need to understand this part so you have a good enough understanding of today. Nefesh, literally translated, always translates out to living creature. But for it to be a living creature, there's a requirement for it to be a living creature. We have to have the definition first of creature and then for living. First, he made us as a spirit being, a being of light. Okay? That is the image of the Most High within us. Do I need to repeat that?
Mhm.
How he created us. Let us make man in our image. Even in the writings of Shaul, it says that the Father is spirit and Yeshua is the visible physical image of the spirit. Okay? So if we've been made as in his image, we had to be made spirit. A being of light, as it says in Psalms and the writings. So then he had to take that image of him, us as a spirit being, being of light, and he had to put it within a type of physicality that people don't understand. They said that he formed the body. In English, it usually translates to red ground or red clay. The word there is redness, hue. It doesn't say anything about dirt or soil or clay. So he put us as a spirit being, a being of light, and he made us from a hue, a redness that extends out beyond us. Some people might even call it an aura in modern day times. But it's our consciousness, our intellect, our ability to think, that part of us that we term as a mind. Now, when he animated us because he breathed into us by flaring his nostrils, he breathed into us his breath into our nostrils. And there's some significance there in another study. Okay. So he breathed into us ever since then with every breath that we take. From the first breath coming out of the womb of a woman, the first thing we do to be considered alive is what? We take that first breath. The classic example of the holding the baby and slapping the buddy's butt to shock the baby into doing what? Breathing. Because it's been in a womb of fluid. And between the second trimester and third trimester, we had gills. I'm not the only one who knows this.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
what?
Between the second trimester and third trimester, every baby has gills. Gills like a fish. Gills to breathe in the womb as we developed. And then we lose them in the last part of the third trimester in our development. It's in every A&P book out there.
All right, I got some studying to do. That is the first time I've ever heard that.
Well,
And
it's
then
not
after you lose your gills, your lungs continue to pump the fluid to
yes.
it helps them grow strong. I don't know all the reasons why it does that, but yeah.
It's okay. There's a lot of people that don't realize it. Most parents don't get more involved enough in the progression of growth within the womb to understand that or find that out.
Really, that's why babies easily swim. They can revert back.
That's what a lot of people say.
Kind of makes sense though, because you are in water for 9 months.
Fluid.
Yep.
Yeah, fluid.
Amniotic fluid.
Right.
Now, Nefesh is mentioned in verse 29, is verse 27, 29, 30, and 32. So you need to understand that on Yom Kippur, the day of atonement for transgression, and kafar, atonement for everything else. Okay? We get atoned for twice on this day. We get atoned for twice. How have we been made? In the image of the Most High within the physicality of the body. Anyway, the extension of that lesson is another lesson. Now, in verse 27, it says that there needs to be an offering made of fire. Now, we're taught in Brit Hadashah that when Yeshua prayed his last prayer in Gethsemane, that he prayed, that he sweated what?
Blood.
Blood. That by itself lets you know, because he was born of a woman, that we are capable of afflicting ourselves for others. To what degree?
Bleeding.
Yes. So have you interceded for anyone else to that degree as of yet?
No.
Well, then you're still growing in your intercession.
Mhm.
So what intersection, how much are we supposed to afflict ourselves during this day for others? Which it says to press yourself for another. How much do we need to intercede for another this day? To what point?
Probably to that point.
Yes, because we're capable of going that far. Aren't we taught to mimic everything about Yeshua? We're commanded more than once to afflict ourselves for another here on this day. So if we are to intercede to the point that we are able to sweat blood on behalf of another, we are in fact oppressing ourselves, afflicting ourselves for another. If that's true, what are we able to present of ourselves? Sweating blood. What have we in fact done?
Afflicted ourselves.
Yes. And then what are we supposed to be doing in preparation of Yom Kippur and afflicting in preparation for this affliction of ourselves? We are interceding because that's not something you jump into for 5 minutes. How much effort goes in to letting the Most High take over so that we can intercede with Him doing it for others so that all of us as a people, nobody's left out? What does it take? It takes in preparation in the days of awe, in high holy days, for us bringing those offerings made by fire, so that we have been atoned for all 10 days before we really get involved with that 10th day. So there is kafar, atonement being made for us all through the 10 days of awe. They don't do everything we were supposed to do for all 10 days anymore, except for a few of us in our line. Okay? An offering made of fire. All fire is what and who?
Most High.
Yes, Elyon. So we're making an offering made of fire. What kind of an offering are we actually getting involved in? Who and what is that fire that consumes that offering?
Most High. Burn offering.
Yes. So if we're getting kafar, atonement, all the way up, and every day we're doing an offering by fire. What is our prayer life becoming in those 10 days? Every day, every day. More and more of an acceptable offering. We're doing offerings made of fire. We're having Kippur. We're preparing for Kippur. It's all inclusive here within this day. Any comments? Questions? Brad,
Makes
do you have a-
makes sense that the 10 days would be like that though.
Yeah, it does.
First time I've ever heard it like that though.
It's not a teaching generally done publicly. Even Jews don't get this lesson very often. Usually the only ones that get this lesson are the Levi among themselves.
Why don't they share it?
Well, it's never been considered a lesson for public consumption. Most lessons are taught in the Peshat. And within the last 900 to 1100 years, even Jews are more interested in going about their daily business than they are entering in like this. How much do we clamor with one another for the esteem of one another, for others to accept us in the prominence and stature and status and position, and tell us what a great person we are, how well studied we are, how righteous we are? How much do we clamor for this attention? We don't get much of that when we're afflicting ourselves on behalf of another, when we're interceding on behalf of another. We don't get much of that clamor doing that. That's between us and the Most High. We might enter in 2 or 3 of us at a time, but we don't get that kind of clamor in this. Which is another reason in my line, the line that I'm in, the Kohanim, we never step up on the stage. Because to step up there between 1 and 3 steps shows our shame, our inadequacies, our limitations as a person, that we places where we have not allowed the Most High to work through. We have not allowed the Most High to have his way. We've not allowed the Most High to use us as a vessel. Even if we may be a worthy vessel, it's only when he's working through it we become an honorable vessel, because it's his honor that's present when he's working through us. That makes us an honorable vessel. And when we're involved in all that clamor, there's no room for him. And when we go up in those steps, for those status, in that position, for that self-proclaimed righteousness, there's no room for him working through us. It's all about us. So while we may become a worthy vessel with fruit of the Spirit and being Torah observant, is whenever we actually let him completely and totally and as a whole work through us. When he's working through us, when he orders our footsteps, when he goes out before us, when he prepares our way, when he fights our battles inside of us and outside of us, and when he gets the victory for each and every battle inside of us and outside of us, and he gives us the victory, he gets his honor with every battle fought, with every victory. He gets his honor when he gives us the victory. He gets his honor when we give him the credit for that victory. He gets his honor whenever he gives us that victory. Those battles he's fought, we have not had to turn to face those battles. We have not had to give our attention to those battles. We have not had to put on that shield and that sword, because the shield is what? The shield of faith. The sword is what? Torah. The armor of the Most High is what he gives us whenever he fights the battle, whenever he goes out before us, when he prepares the way, when he orders our footsteps. The armor is him making sure we don't have to divide our attention, because he commands us, seek first what? The kingdom and his righteousness, his justification. So he fights all the other battles inside of us and outside of us, so we don't have to divide our attention from what he's commanded us to do. Every battle we fight ourselves, we steal it back from him so we can fight it, because we feel like we can do that battle fighting better than him. We can defend ourselves better than he can. We can defend his name better than he can. We can show our righteousness better than he can. Questions or comments? Reason I gave you guys the prayer. Walk hand in hand with the fruits of the Spirit prayer. Hoping, yes, thank you for ordering my footsteps today. Thank you for going out before me today. Thank you for preparing my way today. Thank you for fighting all of my battles that are coming today, inside of me and outside of me. Thank you for walking with me while you do that, so I only have my eyes on you. Thank you. Toda Rabba Leha. And it culminates today with us taking the time to intercede for another who may be feeling so futile and so guilt-ridden they can't look up. So we intercede for them before him, so enough people can intercede and take enough burden off of that person so that they can ask for atonement. They can bring an offering. And they can get both Kippur and Kippur. Because we cared enough for one another to make that happen. It's all yours, Michael. That's all I have.
All right. Questions or comments?
No.
Everybody's deep in thought.
Pretty much.
Well, we got part of it done then. Good.